Long have they slumbered, their 60 million year long sleep bringing them to the harsh warfare of the 41st millennium. Rising from their tombs, the android revenants bring their destructive weaponry to bear upon the living mortal forces of the galaxy. We are of course talking about the regenerating robots of the Necrons. Long ago, the Necrons weren't quite so metallic. A flesh and blood race known as the Necron tier, their world was a barren wasteland, blasted with radiation from their harsh sun. Their people were weakened and sickened by this radiation, and their shortened lives were spent in the pursuit of lengthening the time their future generations would survive. Encountering the creators of the Eldar and the Orcs, the Necron tier requested that these Old Ones gifted them with their secret of immortality. The Old Ones refused the Necrons this gift, and so began the war in heaven. The Necron tier were furious. Here was a people with the ability to heal them, to give them all that their people had searched for, and they had been refused. The Old Ones had seen the Necron tier's obsession with death and the dangerous drive to conquer it and eventually all else, and they could not in good faith assist the Necron tier in their mission for the betterment of all the galaxy. The Necron tier did not see it this way, however, and swore to destroy these Old Ones who had damned them and to take immortality from them. Searching for a method to do just this, they discovered a creature feeding upon their star. This Yingir, or Catan as they would become known, came before the Necron tier, and a bargain was struck between this Catan and the leader of the Necron tier, the Silent King Sarek. The offer was an enticing but simple one. The Catan would give the Necron tier the power and immortality that they sought, and in return, they would have to join the Star Gods in destroying the Old Ones, for they too sought their destruction. In rage and desperation, the Silent King agreed, and the Necron tier underwent the process known as the biotransference. The Catan transferred the minds of the Necron tier into living metal bodies, their souls being siphoned off in the process to feed the numerous Catan that had arrived to enact this process. The biotransference was incredibly painful for the entire race, and most lost their sense of self and autonomy. The main populace became thralls under their lords and overlords, the ancient dynasties of the Necron tier now being cemented within the lines of code that programmed the various bodies and command protocols of the Necron tier's new forms. All, however, were slaves to the command protocols of the Silent King, who retained the most of himself and saw the true monstrosity that had occurred to his people. This change marked the end of the Necron tier and birthed the Necron race. The war in heaven is something we'll cover in better detail in the future, but for now, we'll spoil the ending. The Necrons and Catan were successful in defeating the all-powerful Old Ones, which won't be any surprise to anyone wondering why they're not still around in the 40k universe. What did come as a surprise, however, at least to the Catan, was the betrayal of the Necrons. Angered over the Catan's deception at what their immortality would contain, the Necrons waited until the Star Gods had expended almost all of their power to end the war, and struck at their forced allies. The Catan were literally shattered, the pieces of these gods either scattered to the cosmos or shackled by the Necrons to act as effectively batteries powering their grand constructs. Their main goal of revenge against the Old Ones complete, the Necrons knew they would struggle to then fight and defeat their vengeful servants. Retreating from the oncoming Eldar, Krork and other races coming to avenge the Old Ones, the Necrons were ordered by the Silent King to bury themselves deep underground. Within these tomb worlds lay the Necron empires, slumbering in their technological tombs until all of these pesky races had died out or moved on. ready to rise again once more and reclaim the glory of Necron supremacy across the galaxy. Fast forward now to the 41st millennium, and we've got tomb worlds waking up all over the galaxy, much to the surprise of the humans, Tau, and other races that have unknowingly made their homes on the surface of these tomb worlds. The hyper-intelligent master programs and legions of Canoptech slave constructs that maintained the tomb worlds and planned their awakening were for the most part effective, but over the millions of years, some tomb worlds failed and fell into disrepair. Some were plundered or purposefully purged, and others still were destroyed by the tectonic shifting of the planet they were housed on. The shifting of the planets, the sporadic destruction, and out-of-sync clocks all come together to mean that the grand awakening of the Necron dynasties is not as grand as originally planned. Dynasties awaken piecemeal, and some never waking at all. All of this, up until very recently, occurring without the guiding hand of the Silent King. Zarek had not taken to the great sleep that he commanded, instead exiling himself from the galaxy's edge. Only as the galaxy was torn apart by the Cicatrix Maledictum did he reveal his return and take his place as Silent King once more, returned with a grand vision for his people that he shared with no one. Another issue has arisen for the Necrons due to their long sleep and late awakening. As you can imagine, being asleep for so long has left them more than a little groggy, with many Necron nobles finding their minds not quite as intact as they had left it. Madness, dulling, and in some cases complete changes in personality occurred to those Necrons who had entered the Great Sleep with some sense of self. This means that the commanding might of the Necron empires is diminished along with their minds. The leaders of many dynasties either left simple or lacking competent commanders to issue orders to. Despite all of these faults, the Necrons have arisen to their old reputation, and the races of the galaxy have come to either remember their old fears or have quickly learnt to run at the sight of a Necron tomb world awakening. Armed with devastating weaponry and endless legions of undying robot warriors, the full forces of a tomb world march with relentless force, unleashing a barrage of gorse fire and cutting down those in their way with hyperphase blades. The core of any Necron force is built from legions of Necron warriors. Once the common people of the Necron tier, these mindless warriors retain only their rough physical shape from their old life, their souls and minds stripped away and devoured by the Catan long ago. They march, slaves to their lord's will and commands, enacting their will as they level their Gauss blasters towards their fleshy targets, the beams of energy tearing them apart at a molecular level. The warriors just look on and pick their next target as their victim screams end abruptly as they disappear in a cloud of green smoke before their battle brothers' eyes. With such power behind their basic troops, it's easy to understand why most other races fear the arrival of Necron forces, or abandon worlds when they discover that it is in fact a dormant tomb world. Even the aircraft of the Necrons carry large Gauss cannons, literally called death rays, and are capable of ripping apart tanks with single bursts. Alongside their armories and troops, the Necrons also learnt a thing or two from Pokemon, releasing their trapped god shards from containment to rampage across the battlefields, unleashing energies of ancient gods upon those who would stand before the Necron dynasties. As one of my first armies, I find the Necrons immensely cool. These robot warriors that regenerate from explosions and march relentlessly towards their goal is such a grim, dark image, and the lore behind each of their units feels thought out and unique. My favourite of these are the Deathmarks. Teleporting assassins of the Necrons, these hunters hide in a pocket of existence until their target is exactly where they want them. They then teleport in from hyperspace, their synaptic disintegrators firing before their target can even register their arrival. So effective are these killers that they are seen by the Dynasty Lords as poor taste to use in battle, and a personal insult of the highest order if they are sent after one another. The big bads of 9th edition 40k, even the Adeptus Mechanicus want a piece of the million-year-old pie that the Necrons and their advanced tech are hogging. Sure, they've seen better days, and most of them are still asleep, but should the Necrons ever unite again fully, the galaxy is in for a world of hurt and conquest.
Order, unity, obedience. We taught the galaxy these things long ago, and we will do so again.
We'll talk more in the future about the Necron dynasties and the different Necron weapons and troops that they utilise. But for now, we'll leave the Necrons here, all caught up to the 41st millennium. If you've enjoyed the video and don't want to miss any more Necron content, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It really helps us to continue what we're doing. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.